This episode of Indie Mogul is brought to you by Squarespace.
It was a massive set with more than 2,500 LEDs controlled on this giant iPad.
Did you ask for this?
Well, the production designer did, and I agreed with him too. That was a good idea.
Hey, what's going on, Indie Mogul? Today I'm here with Jakob Ihre, the cinematographer behind the story Chernobyl. Today we're going to do a cinematography breakdown of the actual series, walk through a couple of scenes, talk about it from the camera, lenses, lighting, and actually walk through each of these scenes one by one. So, Jakob, how was the process of shooting Chernobyl?
It was an amazing, life-changing experience for all of us involved. It was very, very hard. It was a long period. So it was an amazing dedication from everyone that really made it.
As far as the visual style and the visual concept of it goes, is there references, inspirations?
I mean, it was a lot of research made. It was so much research, and our production designer, Luke Hull, had done so much research. And of course, cinematography is often based on great production design and historical research. And this is a small little detail, I guess, but I found they didn't have any frosted bulbs in the lamps. It was all clear glass bulbs. Because of that, the light was often hard. They had fluorescent tubes, even in the living rooms, in the ceiling. So the mixture of fluorescence and this hard lighting bulbs or practicals, that fact or that historical fact put some stamp on the look. For me, one big kind of reference or a starting point was the murals of the Soviet Union at the time. And in episode 2, I think you have these shots of a mural where you see the worker, the Soviet working, and he's standing next to this sun. And it's not actually a sun, it's atom. And so the atom was represented as the sun, and the fact that it looked like the sun, that was kind of a starting point for us how to visualize the invisible, so to speak. And you often see the light fluctuating, you see the sunlight dimming in and out in the same shot. And in order to convey the feeling of something is in a subtle way is off, and it's a different world that we live in after the accident.
So for this project, as far as camera and lenses go, what did you guys use?
We were using Alexa Minis and some Cooke Panchros.
Spherical lenses.
At first we thought of using anamorphic lenses. And for me, Russian cinema was somehow anamorphic lenses, which is very wrong because many films are not, are spherical, of course. But so we thought we could kind of portray the Soviet Union better with these lenses. But we kind of switched side and thought, let's forget the machinery of the Soviet Union and concentrate more of the people, of course. It's really about the people and the characters, and we have to be as true to them as possible and not to put a layer between us and them. So we thought, let's be as humanistic as possible, and I think spherical lenses are more honest lenses in that sense, and used correctly, spherical lenses are more a humble and more natural looking lens in anamorphics.
Alrighty, so let's get this first clip up and running. Let's do this.
Yeah, this is in the control room of Reactor 4, and we shot this in Vilnius, in their studio outside Vilnius, but the entire set was kind of built in England.
Comrade Dyatlov! Comrade Dyatlov!
What just happened?
I don't know. There's a fire in the turbine hall.
It was a massive set with more than 2,500 LEDs that were all kind of controlled on this giant iPad.
Wait. So you're taking every single one of those little dots in the background?
Yeah, everything is controllable.
What?
I think it was 2,500.
That was all on DMX? Wait, so it was historically accurate as well, too?
Yeah, maybe we had experts on, with us, and we made sure that the lights were kind of blinking that kind of correct way.
All right, let's draw this out.
So this is the control room here.
Okay, so these are all like the little buttons that
all the buttons, and then we have all these buttons on these walls here. But the main lighting setup is, of course, from the overheads.
What are these lights here?
Simple kino flows. At first we thought we would put sky panels, which are more controllable, but there were shots we thought we would see up and see actual tubes.
Is that the actual overhead lighting here?
Yeah, this is the overhead lighting.
And you guys retrofitted these with kino flow lights?
Yes, we did.
Gotcha. Where'd you set up the cameras?
We had 3 cameras spread out in different positions. And often we felt we were not doing anything visually interesting. We were worried that how do we make this come alive? behind here, we were all over on this side. We were always always pointing the same angle. So it was one there, maybe one next to it, and maybe one here, but they were never shooting towards each other.
3 isomeries going on at the same time with Cooke spherical glass going on all 3 of them.
Yes, and the hard thing was with that was that the Cookes, when we had more than one camera, because all the sets are so different. So when I'm looking here by my monitor and I put on a 75 on this one and we put on a 50mm on this one, they look completely different in the monitor. One is warm, one is cold. So then, before we go for a take, I am trying to calibrate all these lenses by using Kelvin, the Kelvin of the cameras, and using the magenta and green. And that was really hard, especially if you don't have much time to do this, but I was forced to do it because I wanted to show myself and everyone and direct the 3 cameras which are part of the same movie.
And you knew this was a risk, choosing these lenses.
And that was a big risk. And but it was an interesting process to do that, because while you were doing that, you were so concentrated on the image. I won't do it again, but it was a really interesting. It was a good challenge. As much as we were breaking up reality with our distorted lenses, we were also breaking up our reality with faulty gear.
And the flickering shows something is wrong in this situation.
And that maybe takes us away from a more evenly lit studio set.
Yeah.
Well, story-wise, you have these 3 divers who've been chosen, or they have said yes to this mission to go down underneath the reactor and to find this sluice gate and to somehow stop the flow of water. And this was shot at 3 different locations. The exterior is a real nuclear power plant, actually, which is a twin power plant to Chernobyl, which we had access to, which was just crazy to have, to be there. This first part, that's not a nuclear power plant, but that's another kind of power plant in Lithuania. We had our amazing German SFX team filling the floor, they created this small little swimming pool here.
This was shot on a stage.
This was on a stage, and it was really hard to work on this stage, of course, because we were all walking in the water. But most of all, it was a hard, scene to tell. And many times we thought, what are we really telling here? What's going on? The audience won't find this interesting because we don't see them barely. They have these masks on. We can't see their faces. We can't hear them. Where's the monster or where's the enemy? And
this was one of the most powerful scenes for me, at least, watching this show.
And the director and I, after shooting this for 2 days, we thought, maybe this won't, end up in the film even, because it might not work. And then we have these flickering lights, and there was, of course, everything is based very much on what happened. But down here, we don't fully know what happened. But it was one idea that they used glow sticks. But for some reason, we felt that the glow sticks wouldn't look correct. So we switched to those and kind of rewrote the script a bit to be able to use these dynamos.
When you went through this, was there any additional lights that you added other than the hand-cranked lights?
Yeah, we had enormous kind of silks above the set, which we bounced the lights in. I think there's source force that we are just dimming up and down, which are also kind of fluctuating, as the torches fluctuates, the bounce or the ambience, it's kind of what's hitting them in the in top of their heads there. Then we have our amazing sparks standing here. They have some LED units, some LED panels, which are which are in sync with the iPad, and also controlled by the iPad or by the DMX. And they're giving them fill light, and when this light starts to flicker, they flicker in the same way. So the bounce back on them flickers in the same way. Often when we were shooting a long take, we felt, my God, we are flickering too much here. How will this ever work? And it might not work. But often when you see in the edit, we often felt actually it's not flickering enough. And so in post, we often added a lot of flicker onto the existing flicker to give it a little bit more of intensity. So there are so many different layers of kind of control in order to achieve what we, in the end, how it looks. It's so many layers of control.
Yeah. Now, before we talk about our last scene, I want to talk about our wonderful friends over at Squarespace, who are making website design super modern and super simple. Now, I know that it's time to stop procrastinating, start putting out that DP, that filmmaking reel for everyone to see. So, first step that you need to do is, of course, upload it to Vimeo or YouTube. And then in Squarespace, you can actually make custom image overlays on your website to bring that reel from Vimeo to your homepage in just a few clicks. Then, all you need to do after that is just purchase a domain, which you can actually do directly on Squarespace, which market over 200 third-party domains like .com, .net, .tv, and of course, just slap it onto a nice contemporary template under the Portfolios tab, and you are good to go. Yes, it is literally that simple. We just walked through making an entire website here in the sponsorship read. So, get started by going over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, just click on the link in the description down below to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. But now, back to the episode.
Like a one-to-one in terms of production design, this is exactly how it looked like, the set when the trial happened outside Chernobyl 1 year after the accident.
Because it was kept from them.
Comrade Legasov, you're contradicting your own testimony in Vienna.
The testimony in Vienna was a lie. I lied to the world.
So we used that as our kind of lighting approach as well, to use the lights that were actually there. And for the first time, we lit the scene in a very hard manner with very hard lights. And I love that. Most projects I do, I always hope, how can we light this film like they did in the old days? Nowadays, it's so much realism. As soon as you have a hard source, it doesn't feel real. And especially when you shoot color, when you use hard lights, it looks fake, but you get away with it easier if it's black and white. So you never get the chance to shoot with using hard lights. But for this trial scene, we did that. And it was, at the same time, was also the most realistic approach. So the props that you see, or the lights in shot, they're actually, lights from the 80s or maybe 70s.
Those are real spotlights that they would have had at these kinds of court
exactly.
cases.
And of course, we had our own Fresnel lights, our own units next to them. But many times we lit even the scene with some of the props that have been used.
So if this was our court case over here, where were the lights set up?
Well, first of all, we had the windows here, and we didn't want a feeling of any sun coming through. So we had frames to kill any direct sunlight coming through.
So this is like Duvetine right here.
Big, 20 by 12
giant
frames.
20 by 20s. Okay.
And we also had some NDs on the windows to keep the exposure the same throughout the day. So we had that, and then of course we used all our practicals that you see in shot. You have a lot of practicals which are actually lights from the 80s.
Mm-hmm. And these are
that were really clunky and hard to use. That we many times actually lit the scene with, but many times we have our own more modern Fresnel light, but still very hard lights.
To match the quality.
To match the quality of this. And we worked at T4 and 5.6. But then we needed lights, and often these lights were not enough for us. So then we had, hiding behind some chairs and stools, we had source 4s, which are a light which you can spot very well, giving us a bounce from the ceiling. Because we can't hide any lights in shot here, and we couldn't rig anything in the ceiling because it was a real location and we were not allowed to put anything. And then you can see above the curtains, there are actually some kind of practicals. I don't think they were there in real life, on the real trial, but we thought had some fluorescence there.
And these are Kinos? These are
the Kinos, and you can see that some are green and some are white up there, and that was also to make it less like a studio proper.
It's not so cleanly lit. It's imperfect.
Yeah, exactly. So we put a lot of care in making those, some gels more greener than the others. And in the trial scene, you don't see any daylight, but towards the end of the scene, you start to see, when he starts mentioning the truth and he starts mentioning why this explosion happened, you can see that behind him in the background, you see that the sun is coming through the curtain for the first time, and it's actually overexposing the background to introduce the threat again.
So that's the sun overexposing the background there a little
coming
bit.
Through. And that was done on one of the windows in the background. We had a big crane here, and we had I think we had an 18K HMI, which was controlled with a shutter. It's some kind of it's like blinds. So at a certain point, they open up and the sun comes, dims up and comes and hits the background.
So even though you put all this work in to black it out and to kind of hide the presence of the sun, at the very end, even after the truth is told, it's really just reintroducing it and saying, this problem is still here.
Yeah.
The threat is still there.
Yeah, it's still there.
That is amazing. Okay. Yeah. All right. Jakob, thanks so much for coming out. Really appreciate it. Again, an amazing job on Chernobyl. If you haven't seen it already, it's on HBO. Seriously, outstanding series.
Thank you.
Congratulations on making it. Also, a big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Again, don't forget that you can start a free trial online at squarespace.com and head over to the link in the description for 10% off for your first website or domain. Also, if you want to hear more from Jakob, you can actually listen to our podcast, which we got in the description link down below. And thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. Thanks so much, guys.
I don't know if this will be fun to tell about that. Behind here, there is 2 monitors, and here I am standing. I mean, I'm not more important than the actors. I mean, I should draw them first.